made a comparison with you and Nas, man. Everybody was talking about it. Now, why out of everybody you pick Nas, bro?
I didn't do it.
They asked him.
No.
They asked him a question.
Your song?
No.
You don't like Ace Trumpets?
Oh, what's so great about
It's so good.
No, you're not in my top 50. You might be in Charlemagne's top 50 and things like that,
What's the top 50?
but you haven't done that much for me in my life. Like, I didn't never want to be like Pusha. I never had a Pusha moment in my life.
Jim Jones may have thought he was just making bold statements, but the moment he dismissed Nas's legacy and called Pusha T overrated, the response from the hip-hop community made it clear this wasn't business as usual, claiming Nas was never that impactful and suggesting he only went viral because of Jim's comments didn't just spark controversy. It triggered what felt like a cultural rejection when he said, "My son can't name one Nas record." It wasn't just shade, it was a dismissal of a foundational figure in hip-hop, and fans took it personally. Suddenly, Jim's career seemed to hang in the balance, with whispers of his summer jam set being cut and a quiet storm brewing from Pusha T's camp. This wasn't a typical rap beef. It felt like the culture was drawing a line, signaling that Jim had crossed into territory where respect isn't just expected, it's demanded.
I admired Nas, but remember Nas' first record, The Barbecue, came out when I was in 11th grade. So Nas was my idol when I was young. Like, you dig? Came to dressing, the wordplay, the music, everything. I was a superior Nas fan. Period. I'd never take that away from him. But then, as I got in the game, you got to realize that your rivals would be idols, and not to take anything away from that. I developed my own style and my own lane that these kids start to gravitate towards the same way I gravitated towards Nas when I was younger and things like that. It's a whole different generation.
Let's get specific. This wasn't some throwaway comment on an obscure platform. Jim Jones made these remarks on the Joe and Jada podcast, a space known more for lighthearted convos than career-defining controversy. But instead of treading carefully or softening the blow, Jim leaned in fully, unapologetically, and with absolute conviction. What could have been a moment to clarify or pull back became a deliberate stand, delivered with the kind of certainty that made it impossible to ignore.
Yeah, Jimmy boy, you should have never brought this up. Y'all are only 3 years apart, and Nas is just like murdering you. You asked us to look up the stats, and here they are. Like, Jim Jones, like, you got a couple songs. I mean, like, literally, it's a couple. But we're talking about Nas. Let me show y'all Nas's last projects. Nas been getting it in since 2018. Jimmy, when the last time you put out an album? Oh, would you look at that? You have been dropping music. You really been dropping music. But nobody's heard it. Nobody's listening.
Jim Jones didn't just question Nas's relevance, he practically rewrote history, suggesting Nas never had much cultural weight and that his own Billboard numbers could go toe-to-toe with one of hip-hop's most revered figures. But let's be real, Nas isn't just another name in the game, he's a cornerstone. Illmatic is taught in classrooms, Ether still echoes in the heads of battle-tested MCs, and King's Disease showed. He's not just surviving in a new era, he's thriving, evolving with grace and skill. Meanwhile, Jim spoke like he'd just redefined rap himself, comparing legacies from two very different planets. And the wildest part, it wasn't even about music. This felt like pure ego, dressed up as hot takes and insecurity slip showing through a confident facade. He even dragged his son into the mix as proof of Nas's irrelevance, which only raised more eyebrows. The backlash came fast and hard. Within hours, social media was flooded with receipt side-by-side stat breakdowns, award lists, sold-out tours, and album after album reminding everyone why Nas's name still rings bells.
I'm more influential than Nas, and I don't care what nobody say. I know I made a little boo-boo when you talk about the sales and all this type of shit. I don't feel like getting into that rhetoric about where I started and where he started.
Well, you said that
but listen, Nas was nice when I was in high school. When I was in 10th grade, Nas came out. Nas was dope. We appreciate him. He had a little bit of run.
And then there's Jim's own chart history, which, let's be honest, doesn't exactly back up the bold claims he was making. All of this controversy sparked from one unsolicited hot take, a revisionist take on hip-hop's past that no one really needed or asked for. Most artists, after catching heat for dissing a legend of Nas's caliber, might pump the brakes, maybe walk it back, maybe offer some clarity, but not Jim. He took the opposite route. Sitting across from Shannon Sharpe on Nightcap, he didn't just stand by his words, he amplified them. With a straight face and full confidence, he insisted again that Nas's influence has been overstated. as if the backlash hadn't even registered.
What I did for Nas probably never been done for him in his life. He's never been that viral at all, ever. Ever. He's never been talked about like this ever in his life.
Now, has Nas reached out to you?
You did. The last time he was in some shit like this where people were comparing was when him and Jay was beating on him. You heard? You did? Like, and I don't want to talk about other people's career, but let's just get to the
Have you spoken
semantics
to
of it.
Nas since the whole thing?
Nas.
Okay.
Huh? I don't know Nas to have a conversation with him. You don't have a conversation, we can have that too and shit like that. You dig? Like, I don't really.
Let's take a moment to break this down second to who, exactly. Jay-Z and DMX. Sure, they all rose during the same era, but they weren't playing the same game. Nas brought introspection, lyricism, and spiritual depth. Jay embodied ambition and polished business finesse. DMX, he channeled raw pain and unfiltered emotion. Comparing them is like trying to rank Kendrick Lamar against future two masters, but with entirely different blueprints. So to claim Nas never led the charge isn't just a hot take, it's a rewrite of history. What makes it even more ironic is that Jim doesn't hide his admiration. He's openly said that as a teen, he looked up to Nas, even wanted to dress like him. So how did admiration turn into dismissal? That's where this gets more complicated than just music talk.
Can you sing along the 5 Pusha T records right now? His records.
Yes.
His records?
Yeah.
Name
I
them.
love Pusha. Nostalgia.
Oh, you was a Pusha T fan. I didn't know he had fans like that. Can you name 5 Pusha T records? No, his records. Pusha T, I love your soul, my dog. You're not in my top 50. You might be in Charlemagne's top 50 and things like that, but you haven't done that much for me in my life. Like, I didn't never want to be like Pusha. I never had a Pusha moment in my life. I never thought, like you dig, like, where I'm from, niggas want to be like you if you was really that dude and that rapper and things
Wayne
like that.
wanted to be like Pusha.
Shit.
He was influenced by Pusha.
Yeah? Okay, cool.
That's why Pusha did the Mr. Me Too record.
Okay, cool. You a very strong Pusha T fan. But what else has he bring to the game? Did he make people want to dress like him? Did he have some slang that everybody was talking like him? There'll be the girls, all the girls wanted to do him. Like, what is the...
Jim Jones is seriously pointing to a movie from 1998, Misplaced, his justification for dismissing Nas's entire 30-year run in music. And that's where things start to feel less like critique and more like delusion. At this point, it's no longer about numbers or even personal taste. Jim isn't offering analysis, he's trying to position himself above Nas. Frustrated that the data, the accolades, the cultural impact just don't support that narrative. It's not about whether Nas was relevant. It's about Jim trying to force his way into the same tier as the GOATs and revealing, in the process, how much it bothers him that he's never been counted among them. And just when you thought he might take a breath and let it go, he doubled down again, this time on Bag Fuel. But he didn't stop at calling Nas irrelevant or downplaying his influence. No, Jim claimed he was the reason Nas went viral again, as if sparking controversy somehow elevated a legend whose catalog is already cemented in the DNA of the culture.
The future is not something you wait for, it's something you build. It lives in the hands of the doers, the dreamers, the people who refuse to stand still. Resorts World is more than a casino. It's energy, it's opportunity, it's hope for the borough. A second chance for some, a first step for many. It's where community gathers, not just to win, but to build a future once imagined. This isn't just business, this is legacy. And now, it's time to invest.
Jim Jones carried himself like the culture owed him a round of applause for reminding US Nas existed, as if sparking controversy was a noble contribution. But the internet wasted no time setting the record straight. One fan summed it up bluntly: the only reason people are even talking about you is because you're saying wild things about Nas and it's all for clicks. Another didn't hold back either. The level of delusional disrespect from Jim is out of pocket. You don't earn stripes by trashing legends. And they had a point. Because while Jim's been busy chasing soundbites on podcasts, Nas has been putting in real work: 3 critically acclaimed albums in 5 years, a Grammy win, and a steady stream of sold-out shows. The numbers speak for themselves. Nas never left. He's been moving the culture forward while Jim tried to stir it up. What Jim thought was the beginning of a movement ended up feeling more like a slow fade out, his own legacy taking a hit with every mic drop that fell flat. Rewind to 2024 PRS. Louis Vuitton's Spring-Summer Show. The energy is electric, and the guest list reads like a cultural hall of fame: Beyoncé, Jay-Z, Rihanna, LeBron. Every corner of music, fashion, and influence is in the building. Flashbulbs are going off non-stop. This isn't just another runway event, it's a global moment. Pharrell Williams is unveiling his debut collection as the new creative director for Louis Vuitton Men's, and from the jump, it's clear, history isn't just being made, it's being worn. Then, out of nowhere, the beat hits and it's not just music, it's a moment. The crowd freezes. It's Clipse, reunited on the runway, dropping their first new track in over a decade. As the song pulses through the speakers, the mood in the room shifts sharp, electric, undeniable. The lyrics cut deep, every bar laced with intent. This wasn't just a surprise performance. It felt like a surgical strike, a shot fired at full volume in front of the entire cultural elite. Even Jay-Z could be seen nodding along. This wasn't shade, it was a statement. A power move dressed as a verse, delivered at the most high-profile fashion event of the year. The line about reaching you out of your element wasn't subtle, everyone knew exactly who it was aimed at. That jab about chasing features outside your lane was a pointed swipe at Jim Jones, especially after he was dubbed an honorary Dipset member on stage in Harlem and started aligning himself with Drake, the very same Drake Pusha had famously dismantled. In the story of Adidas, a blow Drake still hasn't fully recovered from. This wasn't some petty SoundCloud diss. It was a calculated move. Pusha chose Paris Fashion Week, a global stage packed with cultural heavyweights, to execute a meticulously planned ambush, proving just how far ahead he was playing the game. Meanwhile, Jim fired back on major platforms like The Breakfast Club, Rap Caviar, and Drink Champs, dragging Pusha's name through the mud and claiming he wasn't even in the top 50. The battle lines were drawn, and it was clear this wasn't just a feud, it was a chess match unfolding in real time. Instead of stooping to the usual podcast drama, Pusha T elevated his retaliation by bringing an elite crowd of billionaires, luxury brands, and legends front and center, turning his comeback into a full-on cultural event. And the significance went deeper than just sharp lyrics. It was about where and how it all unfolded. Pharrell, the mastermind behind Clipse's signature sound and a figure straddling Virginia roots and fashion's upper echelons, produced the track. They premiered Chains and Whips, reportedly crafted at Louis Vuitton's Paris headquarters overlooking the Seine space. Pharrell himself described in a New York Times interview, marveling at how they were beating the system just by creating their. While Pusha was orchestrating this high-stakes game in Paris, Nas was quietly forging an empire in Queens. Jim Jones was busy chasing viral moments, but Nas was breaking ground on Resorts World, Queens, a massive 350,000 square foot casino project, backed by a $5 billion vision. This wasn't a simple business deal. It was Nas investing in long-term infrastructure, economic empowerment, and generational wealth for an entire borough, proving that while some chase headlines, others build legacies. Meanwhile, Jim Jones is out here flexing about Summer Jam appearances like it's still the glory days of 2008. But Nas, he didn't need to throw punches with lyrics, he let his achievements do the talking. Those undeniable receipts hit harder than any diss track ever could. Fans noticed instantly, flooding the comments with sharp observations. One said it best: while some are desperately chasing viral moments, Nas is out here making power moves. When you're truly wealthy, genuinely respected, and consistently relevant, you don't get caught up in the noise, you simply let your legacy do the talking. Picture this: Summer Jam 2024. The moment Jim Jones has been chasing all year finally arrives. But as he steps on stage, instead of cheers, the crowd falls silent and awkward, heavy quiet that speaks volumes. The energy just isn't there. The usual hype feels missing, leaving Jim reaching out into a void, begging for a spark to ignite the room. The desperation is almost palpably like someone pleading for just a little life to be breathed into a show that's already lost its grip. It's a stark contrast to the star-studded event he dreamed of, and the silence says more than words ever could. Please, come on. The tension was thick, there was so much more on the line, and yet, the energy just wouldn't ignite. Then, things took a turn for the worse. Funkmaster Flex, the very same Flex who had stood by Jim through thick and thin, cut his set short, sending a clear message in real time. You could see the impact hit Jim immediately. This was meant to be his defining moment, the payoff for all the noise he'd stirred up. But when the dust settled, it wasn't hits that he delivered, it was drama. And drama, no matter how loud, doesn't fill arenas or win respect. Yet, despite the setbacks, Jim wasn't ready to call it quits. He had one last jab left this time, hitting on a deeply personal level. After the Louis Vuitton showdown, Pusha T kept a low profile publicly. But behind closed doors, the message was clear. The battle was far from over. Insiders close to Clipse reveal that their forthcoming reunion album is packed with verses aimed squarely at Jim, promising a series of calculated, relentless blows that could redefine the conflict entirely. The track that dropped in Paris was just the opening move. The real story gets darker from here. Insiders are dubbing this the Coke Bear moment, with Pusha fully embracing the antagonist role, refusing to play it safe or hold back. If Jim keeps stirring the pot, what's coming next won't just be a dice, be lyrical execution. But it's not only about the words. It's about the entire narrative. Pusha is crafting his comeback surrounded by luxury and high culture, while Jim's rhymes echo through Harlem's back alleys, rapping over the very same beat that just buried him. Yes, you read that right, the contrast couldn't be sharper. Jim tried to reclaim ground by flipping the chains and whips beat, dropping a freestyle that even threw shade at No Malice, an unforgivable misstep. Pusha's known for taking hits, but dragging No Malice into the fray, a man who stepped away from rap to embrace faith and transformation, crossed a line from criticism into disrespect. While Pusha hasn't fired back publicly yet, history shows he's not quick to react. He waits, plans, and when he strikes, it's devastating. Meanwhile, Jim made an even bigger blunder by openly dismissing Clipse's latest single, Ace Trumpets, during an interview, taking one final ill-advised swing that only added fuel to a fire that's far from burning out.